my younger. I know how to do this, but right now I'm just. Okay, time to start.
There, that works.
That's good. Yes.
Mine can project pretty well.
I know. He's over there. Hello. Hey, good to see you. Oh, yeah. I brought the shoe. Okay, good. All right. Okay, everybody, welcome on Valentine's Day. Oh, and, oh, yeah. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming on Valentine's Day. And the first thing we're going to do, as always, is say the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag right here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, as I said, thank you for coming out on Valentine's Day. We try to reward you with fake flowers and candy. All of those things are from me, from the bottom of my heart, for all of you for coming out on this. Love you guys too. All right, so then, what I'm going to do. They're all on the table over there. Okay, roll call. I do this as fast as I can. Ball Harbor, Bermuda Riviera. And when you say present, please say it loud. I do have a hearing issue. I have hearing aids, but they're not perfect. Birch Park, Breakwater Homes, Central Beach Alliance, Central City Alliance, Cooley Hammock, Coral Ridge Country Club, Estates, Coral Ridge Association, present, Coral Ridge Isles, Coral Shores Civic Association, Croissant Park, Dolphin Isles, Downtown, here, Edgewood, Flagler Village, here, Galt Mile, Golden Heights, Harbordale, here, Harbor Beach, Harbor Inlet, Historic Dorsey, Home Beautiful, Idlewild, Imperial Point, Lake Air Civic Association, Lake Ridge, Landings, Lauderdale Beach, Lauderdale Harbors, Lauderdale Isles Civic Improvement Association. Okay. Lauderdale Manors, Mass District, Melrose Manors, Middle River Terrace, Nurmi Isles, Palmer Village 1. Is that the correct name, right? 1?
That's really the correct name.
Okay.
5 plus 3 Asian things.
Okay. Poinsettia?
Here.
Point Siena, Progresso. Here. Hi, JJ. Oh, sorry. Rio Vista.
Present.
River Garden Sweeting. Riverland Preservation. River Oaks.
Here.
Riverside Park. Rock Island.
Here.
Sailboat Bend. Seven Isles. Shady Banks. Okay. Sunrise Intercoastal.
Here,
South Middle River. Tarpon River. Victoria Park. All right. Is anybody here from Twin Lakes? Okay. And, okay, that was it. Who, did I miss someone?
you didn't call Beverly Heights, so I didn't hear it anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, good.
Thank you.
I thought I saw you. Anybody else that I missed? Okay. Let me just go through the board real quick. Michael Albetta, Melinda Bowker.
Here?
Jim Concanon is excused. Kathy Stubbs.
Here.
Abby Laughlin, excused. Colleen Lockwood. Marilyn Mameno.
Present.
I'm here. Frankie Lane.
Here.
Dennis Ulmer. Okay. That is about as fast as I can do that. All right. Ooh, don't want that to happen. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm actually somebody that's been very involved in this whole thing. I'm going to let her go ahead and present our next speakers. Go ahead, Marilyn. You want this?
Maybe. Thank you, Madam President. You know me, I'm Marilyn Romano, and I'm taking you back to 2017. Remember 2017, when poop was flowing in the streets of the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we were the butt of the jokes of all of the country? Well, at that time, the city decided to establish a infrastructure task force to find out what we had been doing wrong and to get us back on the right path. And Ron Centimore, may he rest in peace, he appointed me to the Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Board. And I've been there since 2017. I'd like to acknowledge James Labrie, who is also a member of the Infrastructure Task Force, and Ralph Zeltman, who doesn't appear to be here tonight, is also a member. And we have been working diligently along with the city for going on 7 years now to get the city back on track for its infrastructure. And the city, I must say, has made astonishing progress in terms of replacing the aging sewer system, replacing the aging water pipes, and a number of other initiatives that the city has done, all too numerous to mention. But the most important thing that we've been doing in the last year and a half, actually probably more than a year and a half, more like 2-3 years, has been investigating the replacement of the aging 5-ash water treatment plant. Now, those of you who may not know, the city has 2 water treatment plants. One is 5-ash, which was built in the 1950s and is a lime softening treatment plant. And the second one is Peel-Dixie, which is a more modern nanofiltration plant. And the Peel-Dixie plant produces very nice, clear, clean water. The 5-ash produces water that is perfectly safe and meets all of the requirements of the regulatory agencies, but it has a yellow tinge. And if you all get yellow tinge in your water, you're on the 5-ash distribution system, and if your water is clear, you're on the Peel-Dixie. So 3 years we've been working on this. There have been numerous studies. There was a study done in 2017 called the REES study that was recommended that the city replace the water treatment plant. That was followed by the Carollo study, which absolutely did not recommend, but said, please replace this plant before you have a problem. And numerous studies since then. The city has hired Hazen and Sawyer, which is a very respectable firm in the water treatment business, among other things, and they have been intimately involved in our water treatment system for at least 10 years. They were actually the firm that was responsible for the planning and the engineering of replacing Peel-Dixie, which was a lime softening plant just like 5-ash and is now the new nanofiltration technology. So by way of background, this has been going on for quite some time. It came to a head very recently in the last, I would say, year and a half, when the city received an unsolicited proposal to replace the water treatment plant. An unsolicited proposal comes from the private sector, and they say to the city, we will do XYZ for you for the following price. And the city accepted that. City Commission accepted the concept of a private partner to provide the new water treatment plant. And there was a process that was gone through. It was a P3 process, which we all know and hate, but the process was gone through. There were 4 contenders for the project. The city picked one contender. Their name is IDE. And the city went ahead and said, okay, we are going to do this with a private partner. Now, I must tell you, your infrastructure task force recommended against going that way. We recommended that the city do an RFP and do the sewage treatment plant themselves. This was in February of last year. And there was a lot of reasons for that at that time. Subsequently, a year has passed. The city has done an amazing job of negotiating with the private partner to get a very comprehensive and full and advantageous, in my opinion, plan to go forward with the plant with a partner, and it's called a comprehensive agreement. That's the name of how this happens. It's called a comprehensive agreement. And just recently, I believe it was February 7th, the commission voted to approve the final comprehensive agreement. And I also must tell you that your infrastructure task force, having struggled with this for a year post when we made our recommendation, voted 8-9 to approve the comprehensive, 8-1 to approve the comprehensive agreement. So we came full circle around and recommended that they go with the comprehensive agreement. And here tonight, we have the stars of the show. And we have here is Assistant City Manager Susan Grant and the Director of Public Works, Alan Dodd, who are going to tell you a little bit more about it and what happens from here going forward. Alan, Susan?
I probably don't need the microphone because I do project, I've been told. So, good evening, happy Valentine's Day, and thank you for, do you need me?
It doesn't record.
Okay, here you go. Susan Grant, Assistant City Manager, here with Alan Dodd, our Public Works Director. I was going to say Marilyn did such a comprehensive job of describing what we've been doing for the past year and a half. We can answer questions. Alan, most on the technical end as far as the engineering. He's an engineer. I'm a CPA. My job was to kind of figure out how much it cost and how we were going to pay for it, and I could talk about that as well. Alan, do you want to start maybe, or do you guys want to ask some questions, or how do you want to do that?
Okay, I feel better. I got a microphone. So I guess I would just like to say it has been more than 2 years of work putting this together, but now that it's approved, this is the most exciting part moving forward. So they are working on finalizing the agreement, doing the signatures and all the lawyers, making sure everything is right in the agreement this week. And if all goes well, we have a lot of reviews and coordination meetings dealing with going over the plan, but we're looking at a groundbreaking sometime in probably late May, and that starts on a 42-month clock to completing this project when we'll be able to transfer over and start using the new plant. So that puts us somewhere in mid to late 2026 when we should see the new plant operational and all of the projects moving forward. So I think that's probably the most important thing is now that the commission agreed to it, the path forward. And with that.
Yep. And, we're starting the financing process. Some of you might have seen or heard, when we first got the price, obviously it's an expensive investment. And we asked, hey, can the city finance a piece of this project? Because as many of you know, we have a AAA bond rating. We issued debt on a tax exempt basis. So we will be financing 75% of the capital costs of the building, of the plant. And there are these enabling works, and we're financing 100% of that. We're going to be running some different things through the city's rate model. Yes, rates will go up over the next 10 years. But again, we had done some preliminary calculations, and even if we did this plant ourselves, if we constructed it ourselves, we would have similar rate increases, maybe a percentage or two different over a 10-year period, but not material. So we're here and to answer any questions anyone might have. Do you want to recognize folks, or
I run around.
Okay.
Hey, Susan. I think it would be helpful if you explained the rate increases that have occurred in the last couple of years getting ready for this. I think people need to understand that and how much money was
That we
able
put
to
away.
set aside, right?
The last time the city ran a rate model for our water and sewer, the projection was there was going to be a 3.6% annual increase in water, a 7% increase in sewer, so the overall increase blended of those two was going to be about 5% a year. A year and a half ago, in October of '21, the commission said, hey, we're going to add an extra 5% onto that water increase, so it was going to be 8.6 instead of the 3.6, and any of that money would be put away for this plant whenever that was going to get built. And at that point, we didn't know which direction we were going. That will, by the end of this fiscal year, by the end of this October, have accumulated $4 million in the first year and another 8 in that second year, so 12 together, which we will use to offset the costs of issuing debt to build the plant. So that's one. So what we're looking at over a 10-year period is about 139% rate increase. Keeping in mind that regular inflation would have had that going up about 40% anyway during that period. So the remaining piece is the capital expense relating to the plant. Here we go. Did that cover it? Okay, careful. All right, so you don't have to. Yeah, perfect.
My question is, where will this be built? Location, and to what area of Fort Lauderdale would this cater? Is it the entire? Is it split? How are we going to utilize it?
Okay, so the new plant is going to be constructed on the Prospect Lake Wellfield site, which is west of the airport, just north of, I believe, 38th Street. 30, okay. West of 31st Avenue, north of 38th Street is the area. And it's, if you drive by it, it's basically a big grassy area that we have 29 wells that pull the water out of field. If you look on the map, it's south of Palmer Village. In there. Yes, it's west of the executive airport. Yes. Okay, now the area that it will serve is Peel Dixie is on the very southern side of the city, and that primarily covers the southern part and the port and the water. So pretty much everybody else in the city in the middle and the northern parts get their water from 5 Ash right now, which is located near I-95. And so that is what will be replaced, and all the north and the middle parts of the city will start receiving water from the new plant when it's completed.
Another question here.
Yeah. Question. When will we see the water bill or the sewer bill go down as you increase it to build the plant and stuff by so many percent? Will we ever see it go back down to save the residents money?
So the water and sewer rates are meant to support the expenses of providing water. So again, the cost of chemicals, the cost of electricity, the cost of all the things that go into producing water have continued to increase.
So in other words, it never go back down to a sensible amount of money.
So I would not anticipate seeing that during my lifetime.
Uh-huh. So we can see $300 water bills and stuff like that in the future.
So, and you know, when you say in the future, you know.
In a few years.
Not in a few years, no.
4 years, 5 years, 6 years.
No. So in a 10-year period, it would a little more than double. So if your current water bill.
$400.
Okay. Oh, what was, I thought I did.
If you have a question, could you please raise your hand? Please do not speak without the
I
microphone.
didn't hear then. I didn't hear.
Okay, so just,
Okay.
okay. Anybody back there have a question? Here we go. Here we go.
Hi. My question is, I was told that at one of the presentation that the filtration system is going to be at 80%. Why are we not getting it at 100% filtration?
Okay, so the technology that we're using in the plant, it is using a combination of nanofiltration and ion exchange, and it's about a 70-30 split between the two for various reasons. So when you use nanofiltration, and I should say Peel Dixie is 100% nanofiltration, as it takes the pollutants and everything out of the water, it creates a percentage of water that's not usable. And what happens is it gets discharged through an injection well down into the boulder level, about 3,000 feet down, just like when we discharge the effluent coming out of the wastewater plants. And that, for a nanofiltration plant, is about 15% of the water that's being processed, is all of the pollutants. So that's 15% of the 70% of the total quantity that the plant is producing is basically discharged as unusable water. And that's because of the type of technology.
Okay. And what would be the pH level?
I don't have my book with me, but I believe it's somewhere between 8.1 and 9.5, and it is specified in there. I don't have the book with me with all of the numbers.
I guess my question is just, can we get a comprehensive presentation of what it is today, what it's planned to be, why you made your decisions? Because for us to kind of randomly answer ask questions, I've got 20 questions I could ask, but
Yeah, no, and so we've done multiple presentations, and we'd be happy to come back with the full-fledged presentation for this group. We were just asked, hey, maybe a week or so ago to come. But there are a lot. We have a full webpage on the city's website that has all of the documents, all of the unsolicited proposals, videos of all the presentations that we've made, as well as we did 2 different telephone town halls. So if you're interested in learning more, I would think that would be a good place to start. And if y'all would like to invite us back to do your next meeting with the full-fledged presentation, we'd be happy to do that as well.
Hi, just thank you for what you have done, but it just occurred to me just now when you were saying that you put all the pollutants back down beneath. Is it going into the aquifer, which is where we get our, no, it's not?
No. What we have in South Florida, you go down a couple hundred feet and you get the Biscayne aquifer, and
Right.
then you go down a lot further and you get the Floridian aquifer, and below that is the boulder zone, which is about 3,000 feet below the 2 aquifers, and that's where it will be discharged to. That is also where all of the treated effluent from GTL is disposed of.
Okay, thank you. I just,
So it will not contaminate the Biscayne aquifer at all.
Okay, that's great. My real question was, when at the last infrastructure task force, they had brought up the fact that a lot of the distribution pipes were not going to be replaced, and therefore some of our water is not going to be as crystal clear as possible. And the gentleman who was was telling us this said that perhaps, over the next couple of years, there's a certain amount of money that's going to be allocated to, it's several $1 million. I can't remember how many. And then somebody said, well, how many neighborhoods is this going to affect? And he said, about 10 to 20%. So I would like to know what neighborhoods will be covered by this? So hopefully all of us are going to have our pipes replaced at some time. When can we expect that to happen? And also, the other thing is, when we had a consent order placed upon us by the state, we were supposed to have all of our lines checked. When can we expect to have that completed as well?
Okay, there's a lot of questions in there. I'll start
I
with.
know, I'm sorry.
Okay, the city has a little over 780 miles of distribution pipes. So it will take hundreds of millions of dollars to replace all of them. And it would take 20 plus years to replace all of them. So we do not plan on replacing all of the pipes. What we do is we have been targeting what we consider high-risk pipes. And in the last 5 years, we've spent about $38 million on replacing pipes. And in the next 5 years, we have a little over $54 million that is planned in our budget for replacing pipes. So, and that definitely will not address all of them. But as we're going through this, remember, the plant is being funded through a bond, not through our normal capital budget lines. But what it does do is, because we are going to be building this plant, we're now going to reprioritize within the budget, where we're not going to need to be investing as much in the 5-ash plant to keep it running, so we can start putting some of that into projects to replace pipes more. We have really two priorities within the water and sewer fund. It's replacing pipes on the water side, and it is dealing with inflow and infiltration on the wastewater side. So we're going through the process right now to relook at our capital improvement plan. And within that, you can look at the one that's in the budget book right now that shows you exactly which neighborhoods, which streets we have projects planned to replace water pipes over the next 5 years. But we hope to really put a little bit more money into that now that we know that we are not going to be maintaining 5-ash for more than the next 4 to 4.5 years. So.
Yeah, that was one of the very important issues that came up during the process about the pipes. And actually, we at the Infrastructure Task Force are going to start at our very next meeting addressing this issue, because now that we have the new plant for certainty and we have a time frame that we can work within, reprioritizing those waterworks projects becomes a very important part of our job, as well as monitoring the ongoing process. And there is an opening on the Infrastructure Task Force. If anybody would like to get involved in these infrastructure issues, come see me, please. Thank you.
And then the last piece of your question dealt with the water consent order. So after we had the big break that happened out at 5-ash, where it shut down for a period, the city fell under a consent order from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and it has a series of requirements that have to be completed by 2026. Okay, and so we have done a number of them. The big thing that we are working right now is the mapping of the entire water distribution system, all 780 miles of pipes, and getting an assessment of them that will go into our asset management program, CityWorks. And that will enable us to do more, instead of prioritizing our budget based on which ones are breaking the most, to be able to use some predictive analysis to say which ones are going to be breaking and that we need to be replaced. So right now we're doing the mapping, and that's going to take us about a year to complete. We'll go into the program and be able to do some analysis and help to refine our prioritization for capital investments later going into the future. And we are on track with all of our consent order requirements to meet the 2026 deadline that we do have.
My question is, you said you're going to have the plant built west of 31st Avenue and north of 38th Street near the Executive Airport. Did I hear that right?
I'm trying to remember the street, but it's directly west of the FXE airport on the north part of the city. And if we look at the map, I can show you exactly where it is.
I'm not good with maps. You have to tell me. But anyway, this is my question. Can we come by to see where this is going to be located? Have you already started? Whenever they get started, digging and all that kind of stuff, we can be able to come by and see where this is going to be located?
Well, you will be able to see the fence line, but the public is not allowed into the well field itself. Because it is critical infrastructure, we have security requirements. We do not allow the public access to those lands. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, as Alan could probably point it out, once we're done on the map over there, so you can see where it is. And I think on the website, we have a map as well.
So I have three questions from my neighborhood. I'll just ask them and you can answer them in any order. So the first question is about the rate, 139% over 10 years. The question is that at the current testing standard or does it include and anticipate increased testing and quality standards? That's question one. Question two, why wasn't there an RFB? Question three, what site preparation has there been and is required? The specific sub-questions were, have there been soil tests and is there an FAA approval required?
Okay. I'll take the first two. I'm trying. So the first question had to do the rate that we're talking about, and right now we're saying 139% over a 10-year period. That is all in. So that includes additional testing, additional electricity, additional chemicals, or whatever's required. So that includes, we put in inflation over all those years, et cetera. So those are, yeah, those should be all in. That was number one. Number two was
chemicals. What about the particulate filtering systems if we start having to take plastic out of our water?
Okay. PFAS is called the forever chemical, and it's something that the EPA has started to take notice from. It comes from firefighter foam. It comes from Teflon. It comes from thousands of different sources, and somehow if it gets into the soil and into the water, it's very difficult to get rid of. 5-ash is a lime softening plant, has no ability to remove these type of contaminants. Basically, what goes in is what comes out into your drinking water. The membrane technology, the nanofiltration, is about 99.9% effective at removing PFAS. And that is one of the reasons why we are embracing this technology. And if you look at all of the plants in South Florida and around the country, everybody is going to this type of technology because it is more effective at removing PFAS. It is not regulated by the EPA yet. However, we do anticipate that they will have regulations coming out within the next year that will have very, very tight standards on what we have to be able to get out of the water. So we measure our water and test for it to see where we are, and we're very, very low. But we know that the EPA is going to have very strict standards, and so this gives us the ability to be able to respond to that when those requirements come out. Now, the membrane technology itself is very effective, but as we're going through the design process over the next couple months, we're going to be doing testing of the well water, which will allow us to adjust the filtration technology on it and make sure that it's more effective on our specific water that we have here in Fort Lauderdale.
So it's in the 139%?
Yes.
okay, I've forgotten the second question.
RFP.
Did we get it? Oh, the RFP. So yeah, there's a couple different ways you can procure things. In this case, we had received 2 unsolicited proposals for the water plant maybe 3 years ago, and both of those were rejected by the city commission for whatever reasons. And I think that happened before I got here, before you got here. In December of 2020, we received an unsolicited proposal from what turned out to be the successful proposer, and then a second one shortly thereafter. The way the unsolicited proposal process works is the city commission decides whether they want to accept it conditionally and open it up for other proposals. And during that period of time, and I think it was 90 days, 2 additional proposals were received. We hired, and one of the requirements under the unsolicited proposal law is that there be a full financial analysis and technical analysis. So Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors were hired to do an individual evaluation of each of those proposals as well as a side-by-side. Interestingly enough, the unsolicited proposers are required to pay for that. So that was $95,000 per evaluation that was done. And so those evaluations were presented to the City Commission in March of 2022, and they made a ranking and authorized staff to start negotiating with that number one ranked proposer. So when you think about it, yeah, we didn't issue an RFP, but this whole unsolicited proposal process is in fact a procurement method, just a different procurement method. One of the things we had talked about is if we were going to do it at this point ourselves, because we would have to put together a design criteria package. We'd have to do an RFP to put that together. Then we'd have to get the bids out. It could take 2 more years. And I don't know if prices are going to go up or down, but typically they've only gone up. So it could wind up costing more. So I think, ultimately when the City Commission made their decision a couple weeks ago, those were some of the factors that they were looking at as far as to accept this proposal or the comprehensive agreement, or to direct staff to say, hey, scrap that all and go do an RFP. So I think that was part of what they were considering when they were making those decisions.
And I think the third part of your question dealt with analysis of the site itself. So in May, the City Commission approved an interim agreement that allowed them access to the site in order to conduct testing. They did go in, they did boring analysis. They've also completed initial environmental assessment, which is found in the comprehensive agreement documents. Now, all of that is used to inform the design. It will inform permit applications, but they still have to go through the DEP permits for dealing with wildlife, with dealing with endangered species if they're there. They're going to have to go through the permit process for removal of trees, for everything they're doing. And as far as FAA clearances, there's also have been meetings with the FAA. My understanding is they already do have approval from the FAA for the height of the buildings, and there is no problems with clearance. And actually, there's 2 parts to that. One part is during construction because you get the big cranes, and the second part is when the building is completed and operational. And that part has already been coordinated.
Okay.
Barry, do we have time for 2 more questions?
I think just one more question, please.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Would you guys talk a little bit more about the enabling works, define exactly what that entails? And it's our understanding enabling works are not part of the the building of the plant contract. That's going to be something separate.
So I'll let Alan describe what the enabling works are, but I will talk about just the cost, $181 million for those. One of the things we talked about, that those would be required if we built the plant ourselves or went through this P3 route. The cost of that is included in that anticipated rate increase. So that's not outside of that. That's already incorporated into that.
Okay. And is that going to go to RFP, or is that going to be part of a P3?
The enabling works will be split. Primarily, it will be RFP. There's a few pieces that will be constructed as part of the building. The first part is what they call the optimal corrosion control treatment plan, which is how we treat the water to protect the pipes as it's being distributed. We won't know the exact requirements until we get through permitting with DEP. So they will be constructing that part. It'll be part of their project, but we're paying for it as enabling works because we are requiring. The second part that they are doing is the pre-treatment facility. There's a lot of sand and stuff that comes out of the water. The wellheads don't have the right pressure, so we have to do some pre-treatment or work on our wells in order to provide water to go into the plant. And it makes sense for them to do that portion of the work along with the injection wells that have to be constructed. So that's really part of the plant, They will build it, but it is enabling works because it's something that we need to do for the plant itself.
So
The
that's
remain-
the ID.
Yeah, it will be, Kiewit is the constructing company, IDE is the technology company, and they will be the operational side of the plant. And Ridgewood, Ridgewood is the investor. So it's really is three parts at this point. Kiewit is a very large U.S. and international construction company that will be actually building it. The remaining of the naval works that we will be building through RFP is bringing in high voltage power from FPNL, because this plant uses higher voltage power, different types of power than what we currently have. So bringing in a 4160 line, a transformer building. So we will be constructing that, working with FPL and a contractor. We will be doing modifications to our well field, additional modifications. We're going to be replacing the pipe that connects Prospect well fields to 5-Ash. 5-Ash is still going to be the distribution center that we pump everything to the city from. We have two very old 48-inch pipes that connect the well fields to 5-Ash. And we did not think it was smart to continue using those pipes. So we want to put in a new 54-inch pipe to connect that area, and the city will be paying for that. It's about a 4-mile pipe. The city will also be completely replacing, rehabbing all of the high-speed pumps and the distribution center at 5-Ash, because we want to still use that as the connection point to the city. So those are the main pieces of the enabling works that will be happening.
Madam President?
Will you use your mic?
Okay. I would like to make the motion that the council for the civic associations have an on-site visit. I go to civic association leaders to go there and later on somewhere down the road. You know, and I know you can't go inside, but outside so they can see on site. Can we go in? Yeah.
There are a lot of people who don't know what 5% looks like.
Okay, so let's just
Go back. So if you could redo that, because those two different places, and 5-Ash, I've been in 5-Ash. I mean, it's something to see if you've never seen it. It'd make a little sense.
That makes more sense. It's
Yeah.
good to see.
Okay, so to strike the first motion, second, the motion would be to have an on-site visit of 5-Ash, with the civic association leaders and everybody else.
Is that possible?
We should be able to coordinate that. We can work with you. We'll figure out a date that probably works good, and we'll have to have everybody sign up ahead of time so we know who's coming back.
Okay, so we'll,
I'll second.
Like on a Saturday?
It's not working. It is? Okay.
Okay.
Like on a Saturday or something like that. Okay?
okay, we have a second. Is there any, I think we're good. I'm not going to do a roll call on this. If
No.
I could just have a show of hands of people that are in favor of a trip to 5-Ash Water Plant? Anyone opposed? Okay, good. If you've never been there, it is really, I was impressed when I saw it. So, okay, we'll figure that out. All right, well,
Thank you, you two. I really appreciate you sticking around the office on Valentine's Day. Please grab candy,
We
flowers,
did.
and take them home to
Thank you.
everybody.
And again, if you would like us to come back with more, do check out the website.
Yeah, I'll put the website on our council website page.
And if you'd like us to come back on a day that's not Valentine's Day, we'll spend hours.
I think it might be, okay. All right,
Okay,
great.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
Nice
much.
seeing
Thank
you.
you. Nice seeing you. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, just before we go any further, I see Sergeant Eric Peckle, is that what I said? You want to just come up real quick? You guys remember how we almost had our neighborhood policeman? I think that's what, Sergeant, how do I say it? Peckle. Peckle, okay.
You know, any variation. I've heard a lot of variations in my name over the years, so.
We'll have your name be.
Yeah, they all work. It's good, yeah. So I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Sergeant Eric Peckrell. I'm in charge of the Police District 1 area community support unit. So I have a lot of great guys that work with me on a lot of the quality of life issues that are commonly occurring. I'm sure all of you have dealt with them from time to time. So I just wanted to kind of come here and show you my face so you know who I am. I can leave a couple cards up here with my contact information in case you wanted to grab it. And
That'd be good.
yeah, if you have any questions or anything for me, I'm going to stick around in the back and I can field them for you. So.
Okay, super. Here's my card. Actually, you helped me out. So.
I definitely recognize the name.
Okay, all right.
How was it?
It was good. It was excellent. Excellent. So thank you very much. We're glad to have somebody like you. Yes, 5 stars. Yeah, we got a good rating.
Sergeant, good.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe.
So next, we have Chief Education Officer Zoe Saunders. And where is she? There she is. She's the one in the Valentine shirt. And Zoe, do you want to be over there? Because I know you have a present. Okay. And she's going to talk to us about the education listening campaign. Maybe you can recruit some of these people. And a couple updates on a few other things. So go, here you go.
Okay, thank you. I know. Glad for my time. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you on Valentine's Day. I'm Zoe Saunders. I'm the Chief Education Officer. I've worked with many of you, and I'm so pleased to be here this evening. I did want to take an opportunity just to provide a little bit of background on what we do in the Education Office and how we frame up our work, and then to really share with you some exciting new initiatives that we're working on that I think will be really impactful for us moving forward. So overall, when we look at what the city does for education, we get these questions a lot. We don't oversee and operate the schools. So the question becomes, what is the city's role in education? And so we really look at this as the ABC strategy. And so A is for aligning resources. We work really closely to leverage the city resources that we have, align them to school district and other government resources to maximize the educational benefit to our residents. An example of that is the joint use parks, and I know I'm going to speak about that later today, but we have invested park bond dollars to make improvements on school playgrounds for the benefit of the community when school is not in session. So it's just one of those great examples of good government where we can work cooperatively with Broward County Public Schools and increase park spaces in park deserts across our city. Another example of what we do is through our summer programming. We work really closely with the Children's Services Council, Broward County Public Schools, our nonprofit providers to identify where there are gaps in access to academic programming in the summer. And we work to use funding we have through the CARES Act and other sources to provide academic enrichment to those targeted communities through our parks programs and partners. B is for bolstering community engagement. A big part of our role as a city is really just to connect with our residents. So I'm happy to be here this evening to understand and learn from you all about what is most important when we think about educational improvements for our community. And C is to champion improvements. So once we really collect that feedback from our residents, our role is really to amplify the community voice and advocate for those educational enhancements. A recent example of that is related to some work we've been doing as a city with Stranahan High School. For many years, the Stranahan High School cafeteria has been well beyond its useful life. It was designed as an elementary cafeteria. Kids were eating outside. They didn't have the proper equipment, air conditioning, lots and lots of challenges with that cafeteria. But that was never included in the Smart Bond improvement to replace that cafeteria. So as a city, we worked really closely with the neighborhood associations. Our education advisory board was really involved in helping to collect input, analyzing the data, and we worked closely with the school board to really champion this improvement for our community. And we're really pleased to share that just a few weeks ago, there was a groundbreaking for the brand new cafeteria at Stranahan High School. So there were a lot of community activists involved in that for many years, and we're really proud of the city being involved in, again, just championing what improvements are needed for our community. So overall, when we look at education office, started about 4 years ago. I'm the first person to be in this role. And so when we came into the role, I thought, well, we have to figure out what our framework is. How are we going to really impact education? And our quick wins, just to share, we've been really helping to expand aviation training programming. So we own and operate the executive airport. So that's an asset that we have as a city. And we've worked to really increase training and programming in the technical areas. I mentioned our summer enrichment program. We've implemented this for the past 2 years, and we've seen that children have improved their reading and math skills during the summer. So we're really pleased that we can offer that benefit to our residents. I mentioned the joint use parks, Stranahan cafeteria, and now we're looking at how can we make that larger strategic impact as a city. We've had some quick wins, and we're becoming more intentional about how we cooperate with our partners and measure our overall impact. So this is just a quick kind of matrix of how we're looking at different projects. So I'm going to focus on those projects that are really shovel ready to go now. And there are certainly things that we're contemplating that require a little bit more work but aren't ready, and they're in more of an exploration phase. So Mary had asked me to highlight a couple of the initiatives. So I'm going to talk today about the listening campaign and some support we're doing around schools, early learning, and joint use parks. So the listening campaign, we're going to be going out into the community to collect as much input as we can in a very grassroots way from our neighbors about what they want to see in education. The question is, why now? The school board of Broward County will be going through their long-range planning and evaluating the best use for schools that are under-enrolled and also have aging facilities. Often when we look at long-range planning, there will be consideration around potential school closures, consolidation, co-location of services. So those are some things that we want to make sure we are aligned and a partner in getting that input from our community so that we can, again, champion those priorities that are most important. So this is a map that's just really illustrative of some of the challenges and some of the questions we have. This is a heat map. It's looking at the enrollment boundaries in our city. These are elementary schools. So the darker blue areas indicate significant under-enrollment. So you can see within our city that we have a number of our elementary schools in a very specific cluster that are under-enrolled. And so it's really, we think, our duty and our responsibility to make sure we're talking with our community and understanding from them what they see is important for these schools. So a question that we have is, what are some of the root causes for under-enrollment? Are there population changes? Are families making different decisions about schools? And as we consider that, are there opportunities to bring in some innovation through these conversations to enrich educational offerings? And something that's important to note, again, we don't operate the schools, but what we do look at is what is it that our community wants and really help to amplify that voice. So we've had lots of conversations with our Education Advisory Board about, why is the city involved in this work, right? And we know education is an important driver about why people move to a city, why businesses relocate, and we think it's really important that we get as much grassroots input as we can to help advocate for what's going to be in the best interest of our residents. So I'll stop there because this is a big focus that I really wanted to think about with this group. I'll kind of walk you through the timeline for this. We've established our objectives and a framework for this listening campaign in coordination with our Education Advisory Board and others, and we're now in the process of refining the actual survey instrument. So in the next month, our goal is to widely share this survey, and we're going to focus on those neighborhoods that are zoned for under-enrolled schools. That will be our first phase of focus. We want to collect this input, again, in a very kind of localized grassroots way. We certainly will share through social media, but we also want to be having boots on the ground and have folks involved in helping us to collect this information at any neighborhood association meeting you have or event going on where there's a lot of residents participating. We want to get input from those that have children, who don't have children. There's lots of questions within that to identify those demographic indicators. And then after we collect the survey data, we'll be having focus groups sessions. And those are really designed to kind of unpack what we heard in the survey and to tease out some of those themes that might have come forward through that initial data collection. And as we look at that as a city, we're interested in identifying what different partnership opportunities may be available and helping to be a connector to pair the priorities of the community with different resources that may be available from nonprofits and other maybe industry partners to support our community's educational priorities. And at the end of this would be to collect our findings and publish those to the respective parties that can be part of the solution of looking at different innovative opportunities to enhance education in our community. So I'll pause there because that's a big focus that we're about to launch. And this, I'd love input from this group.
Could you overlay that map with the neighborhood map?
I do, and I have that. I was told 20 minutes. I actually had 6 more slides with maps. Yes.
Yeah, if you can send it to me.
I can send it to you. Yes, I can send it to you.
That is very interesting.
Yes. I do have a map that shows the targeted neighborhoods that we are looking at that are below this layer. Yes.
Not the under-enrollment sections have anything to do with test scores?
So when you look at the correlation, many of some of our lower performing schools are located in areas of under-enrollment.
If you're going to ask a question, we'd like you to be on the microphone because otherwise it doesn't record. No, I can do it, Zoe. You stay here. Okay, I'll take a turn. Otherwise it doesn't record.
Hi, Zoe.
Hi.
I am so excited that you guys are bringing this program because all of those blue sectors, a lot of that represent the north central area of the city. And we have so much input that we would love to be able to provide to you all.
Excellent.
I'm also from the school system.
Great.
And for a number of years, I'm telling you this right now, I mean, it's ecstatic to know that the city is also willing to come and hear what we have to say, why these schools are under-enrolled and don't have the students that should be there.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Thank you for that input. The county is very large, right? So I do think that there's a lot of value in having more of a localized focus because we understand our city and we have different opportunities, I think, to engage with our residents that, the school district may not be organized to do in the fashion that we can, if we can do this well. Yes.
Yeah, I see this map. I see the under-enrolled schools. I live right close to Croissant Park Elementary, and they just keep building portable after portable after portables out there.
Mm-hmm.
That seems that is the other direction. There's no way to balance this out anyway. So, and I got another item. Even the mayor in his State of the City speech at the Parker everybody's talking about the new lunchroom at Stranahan High School. Now, so much money that I know for a fact went, instead of going to Stranahan, that was supposed to go to Stranahan, went to Lauderdale. Putting a new cafeteria in Stranahan is like putting, in my opinion, 4 new tires on a car that doesn't run. I mean, it's so crumbling. I mean, it's decaying. And then all I hear when everybody talks about anything being done in the city for the schools is the lunchroom at Stranahan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much other things that we should devoting our time and our money to that, it's just, to me, it's pointless to have a cafeteria Stranahan when the building, is almost ready to be condemned.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that feedback. For historical background, at one point, Stranahan High School was intended to get a completely new high school. And all the plans were presented to the community, and then the recession hit, and that didn't happen.
I graduated in the 74.
Yeah, my parents graduated from Stranahan High, too. And then when the Smart Bond came forward, there was a lot of community members that were advocating for replacements of all of the buildings. And what went into it were renovations. So when we started to get re-engaged in this effort and there was an opportunity to advocate for an improvement, we took that opportunity. It's certainly not solving all of the challenges, and in all of my public comments to the school board, while I am very grateful that we have a cafeteria, I also indicate that there's a lot more that we need to focus on, not only at Stranahan High School, but at many other schools in the city of Fort Lauderdale. The city of Fort Lauderdale, that's where all the schools were first built. So we have many of the challenges now because we have a lot of those aging facilities. And so as they're doing their long-range planning, they will be kind of evaluating those needs. And I think we as a city need to come alongside and potentially challenge some of those assumptions, ask the questions around what's contributing to under-enrollment, what do residents want to see, so that we can be a partner in that. And I think you had a second point. I know the cafeteria was one point, and then there was a second point. Oh, Croissant Park you had mentioned. Really we have interesting dynamics in our city, and I do have maps that I can share with you on that. We have certain elementary schools that are oversubscribed, and other schools in other parts of our city that are significantly under-enrolled. And so it does beg the question of what are some of the motivating factors. Some of our families are using reassignment as an option to enroll in other schools, but that's not always an option if you don't have transportation, because as you know, if you do a reassignment, that doesn't guarantee a bus for a child. So there's lots and lots of dynamics. This isn't it's not an easy solution, and I think we're very mindful of the complexity and want to get as much of this type of conversation happening in our community so we can start to kind of cohere around what is it as a community that we want to see holistically. So I appreciate your comments.
Is it also, as far as the under-enrollment, part of that challenge is some of it going to private schools and charter schools? We're losing a lot too, and as far as I taught many years ago, and our school out in Cooper City was overcrowded like 3 times, and we were always splitting with the different boundaries. But I'm also concerned of the fact that, with that happening. But also, is the magnet school, again, I'm not up on it as much because I'm retired, but is the magnet school programs attracting, and your airport, and the movie studio type things, are those things going to help the future with the education?
That's the hope. I mean, I think, again, as a city, if we look at what are the different assets that we have, well, now we have this whole new industry coming into our community. How can that be better leveraged for schools? There are some initial partnerships that are being developed, but I think there's some more opportunity, certainly, to expand them. When you look at different options, that's what we're going to be asking families. What options are you choosing for your child, and why? There's a lot of different choice opportunities, be it through magnet or through school vouchers for private school or through charter schools. Our city does not have a lot of charter schools compared to other cities, but we do have a lot of different options certainly available. Absolutely. We want to understand those motivating decisions, right?
Hi. I've been in this very situation. I have kids that were going to public school in Fort Lauderdale, and they were actually going to a pretty good school, VSY. But then all of a sudden, music got eliminated, and we both know that music at the grade school level is a very, very good predictor of how the children are going to do. It stimulates them in other avenues that they normally don't have exposure to. Next thing, PE went away. Well, we see our kids. Many of them are overweight. They don't have enough activity. You eliminate PE. Well, at a certain point, my family was in a situation where we were blessed that we could make sacrifices and pull them out of public school and send them into private school. I really think the under-enrollment is really more related to what is being provided to those children, and many parents are going to sacrifice the world to give their children the education that they feel their children deserve, even if it means taking the bus, a public bus, not even a school bus, but make sure that their children get the education. And I really think, I hope that the information you're going to gather out of these surveys are going to be very representative of the communities that are being challenged by our education system. And hopefully this is going to be the right direction forward, because without the right education for our children, we're going to be in trouble, big trouble.
Absolutely. Thank you. And one of the things too we talked about as with our education advisory board, with the question of why the city, we don't have an agenda. Our only agenda, right, is to advocate for what's in the best interest of our community. And so we want to have those questions. We want to be open and understanding. What are different motivators? What is it that's influencing your decision to enroll your child at this school versus this school? So we can catalog that. And there are a lot of partnership opportunities, I think, that are untapped. We have a lot of resources available to us in our community. I think we can also help in being a connector. You talked about specific programming. I think there may be a way, even outside of, the district funding, maybe there's a way to bring in other partners that we could look at. But this kind of rich conversation is really the intent of what we want to do. And one of the things I'd love to hear from you all is, how do we do that well? Right? How do we engage with the organizations you're involved with your civic association, with your faith-based organizations, with, any of your kids, soccer league, whatever it is? How can I connect with you to understand how we can have these kind of conversations across our city to move this forward?
Zoe, can I just ask a quick question? I don't normally ask questions, but how do you think virtual school has had any effect on this under enrollment like that? I mean, there are a lot people got used to, or some people got used to, a virtual school situation. Do you think that has anything to do with these numbers like this?
I know a lot of parents that couldn't wait to get their kids in school. So I don't know. But I would just be funny there. But I mean, one of the questions is, now we have a reset after COVID.
Yeah.
I think that's also an important element of why we're doing this now. People might have different ideas or priorities for what they want in education, having gone through the pandemic and been very involved in their child's education. So it's an interesting point. Yeah.
Oh, here you go. Oh,
I closed there's all.
okay.
I guess just my view is that the city of Fort Lauderdale should have an agenda, and it should be to make public schools the top option, and that we shouldn't be very passively. I mean, Walker Elementary is under-enrolled. City of Fort Lauderdale funded an alternative school, right, in Jack and Jill. And I just think that public funds should be going for public education. And we should make every school a top school. That's my opinion.
Okay, you can give that back to Zoe. Okay, we're gonna finish this up because she has a little more to tell us about.
And I think that type of conversation does go into goal setting, right? When we think about working with our commission, one goal we do have in our current strategic plan is to increase public school enrollment. So this type of conversation is important.
I just have a comment, because I do have grandkids in public schools this time. But now with the rules and regulations from Tallahassee, programs and stuff that's being cut out, what kids can and cannot study, what you can and cannot do in elementary school. He talked about one thing about music in the schools, PE in the schools. All of this stuff is coming out of Tallahassee. They even talking about changing the SAT test and all this kind of stuff. It's a good thing that the city going to do this. However, because they've made it where parents can take their kids out of public school, and put them in any private school they want to. The money comes out of the public pocket, goes into the private pocket, and if that child come back into the public pocket, that money stays with the private. So, and then we have teachers, a lot of less teachers. They're not going to teach at Thurgood Marshall, because if they go to another school, they'll make more money there because of the performance. This has been a major problem for a long time. This is not just started. When they started closing our schools in Lauderdale Manor, and they closed us out, this has been going on a long time. Where have you been? But this is a major problem. The city, I'm glad you're doing this. I don't know how you're going to fix it. I don't think there's no fixation for it unless we change the political arena. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good discussion, I will.
This is an important discussion. I mean, I think that we need to capture this information. It is very complicated. As a city, we don't have direct control over these decisions. We have no control. But we have an opportunity to have engagement. So one of the measures of our success is engagement, because that's something I think we uniquely are positioned to support as a city, and being connected to our residents, seeing how many folks we can engage and getting input, and identifying some of these key themes. Another project, and I know, Mary, I'm going over my time, is we are also piloting a new approach to wrap around community support for our schools. And so we're calling these the Community Action Partnership Education Teams, so CAPE teams. And so what we're doing is we're mobilizing and organizing volunteers, city departments to really engage with schools in a new way. And so the main goals is to increase volunteerism into schools, to connect schools with different resources. And we have gone through a process of triaging. We're supporting 3 schools this year as a pilot to understand how we can learn from this process to be a better connector for our schools. Because I think when we look at it, it takes a village of connecting schools to community. We're trying to be intentional about learning how to do that better so we can scale that. To your point, it's not just about those decisions within the school, but that wraparound. So there's way more information on that. And then what did you want me to talk about? The joint.
How the joint use parks, if there's been any progress with that.
Yeah, so the funding has all been approved for the joint use parks. So I had mentioned that earlier. So that's $12 million has been allocated to make improvements at 15 sites across the city. We have identified there are certain projects that are more complex, which AECOM will be managing. And we also have a list of other projects that we see as short term. So we've had those, part of our requirement is that there's fencing around the park area so that it prevents access into the school building. So we've reviewed those with the school board, and now we're amending our reciprocal use agreement and working on the timeline. I know that there's a lot of interest in solidifying that, both from the neighborhoods and the schools. And so I expect more calls and emails around that, but we are working on it. James. Sunrise is one of those schools.
So, this is one of my passions, Zoe. So the money got approved back in November, finally, through the city hall. I mean, they had to go through a couple of allocation processes. And here we're sitting, I haven't seen anything happen at my neighborhood school. I haven't seen a plan, I haven't seen a design, I don't know if there's a project plan, I don't know if there's a timeline. There's too many unknowns. We're waiting a long time for this, and every day the value of our dollar is going down. So we may have passed a $12 million bond to get these things done, but if we don't get moving, it's only going to be worth $6 million in today's dollar value. So what's happening? Who owns it, and who can we push to get it done faster?
So the costs are certainly going to be a challenge. So we do need to have an amendment to our contract. So we're working through that. And then the projects that will be managed through AECOM will have a different timeline versus those that are managed through us. So I understand the question, and I will follow up to make sure we can clarify the right point of contact to get the information you need.
It actually might be the parks.
I mean,
it might be parks more than her. No.
That's fine, just
Okay.
let us have it.
All right.
It's not gonna be knocking on the door.
Okay. Sorry.
You mentioned there were 15 sites that the city was going to be. Is Stranahan one of them by any chance?
Yes.
Hey, somebody's happy.
That's a simple answer.
Sorry, Zoe.
Yes.
Those 15 parks, are any of them in District 3 besides Carter Park?
Oh, yes, yes. I'm going to rattle them off to make sure, but I might miss some. North Fork Elementary School, Thorogood Marshall Elementary School, Westwood Heights Elementary School, Lauderdale Manors, which is already a city park, that'll be having improvements. I'm walking through District 3. Did I say Westwood Heights? That's North Fork.
There were quite a few.
Yes, I'm missing some. Rock Island Elementary School, Dillard 612.
So the joint use parks are attached to these elementary schools?
Elementary, middle, or high schools, yes. So they're parcels of the property that are going to be fenced off so that they can have access to the community after hours and to the students during the school day. So it's a mutual benefit for the students and the community. The community is only allowed to access those when the students are not on the property. So if they have a lot of athletic programs and things like that, after school, it's likely more on the weekend that those would be utilized. But I will certainly follow with Mary to make sure you have the full list of schools.
Okay, I do want to move on. It's getting late. We have some other things to do, so I'm going to take these two questions. And that's it, okay. I can't say another question.
I just want to say that at one time, the council had a representative that met with the Education Advisory Board. I did that, I was that for quite a few years. And I would go to the Education Advisory Board and report, what was happening, and then come back to the council and do that. So even when I was on the Education Advisory Board for a lot of years, I did it for the council as well. So maybe that's something too that the board could decide on somebody as a representative of the council to attend this school board meeting.
I think that's a great idea.
Then they could report back and forth.
Absolutely.
Was Colleen Lockwood on ever?
She was, yeah, she still is. She's still an Education Advisory Board member.
Okay, well, maybe she's on our board, so maybe we can get her.
And Juliet is a new member, so she'll start this week.
All right, there, okay. Here.
You mentioned there were 3 schools you were.
Yes.
You mentioned there were 3 schools you're piloting. Which are the 3 schools?
Walker Elementary School, North Fork Elementary School, and Westwood Heights. And so if you're interested in getting involved, we welcome that participation.
Okay, I think one last thing though, could just quick explanation if you know what the Bezos Academy is, or is that anything that's likely to be coming in our direction, or do we want it? I don't know anything.
Yeah, so we are certainly exploring that partnership. So the Bezos Academy is a network of tuition-free, Montessori-inspired preschools. They operate full day, year-round. They seek partners to provide a 10-year rent-free agreement. They do pay operational expenses as part of that for security or those type of things. And then they operate the program for 10 years. It is free for families. They have preference for those children who are homeless, enrolled in foster care. And then from there, a tiered system based on the poverty threshold, and it goes up to 400% of the poverty threshold, which some of the subsidies do not go up that high. So it may also serve those families that earn too much to qualify for early childhood subsidies. So what we have been doing is exploring where the partnership fit may be best suited, and that's continuing to be explored.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very informative. Don't forget your clicker.
Oh, that's okay. I'll put it
Okay. Oh, I didn't know where. I don't like that. Okay. Wow, a lot of information. Okay, so now we're going to get into the business part of our meeting. And the very first thing is I'm just going to briefly talk about the dues are due at the end of March. At the end of March, the prior year ends. So feel free to go online, and I think it was on the notice, to do your application. You can pay online, or if you don't want to do it that way, you can mail it in. They're all the options, but they're right there on our website, okay? Everybody know what the website is? All right. And it's also on the notice that you got in your email. So you really don't want me to be chasing you down, because that's just unpleasant for yourselves, just so remember that. And also the other thing is, when we vote on anything, when we have serious votes, not like a trip to the water plant, we do go through the roster, and only associations that are paid up to date can vote. So I'm going to really go through this roster with a fine tooth comb. Right now, anybody that is paid for last year is fine. But I probably will send it out because I want everybody to see who I have for your organization and if you're current. Or if you have any questions, you can always email me. I'm happy to look it up and figure out where you are. There's one or two that actually paid well in advance. So just, get your membership in. You should be fine as long as you pay by the end of March. I can't remember, does March have 31 days? By March 31st, okay. Okay, and now we have the nominating committee, and Dennis, do you want to come up here? Or would you rather be right there and talk? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Dennis Ulmer, the chair of the nominating committee. I was selected as the chair as a former past president of the council, and then there was one representative from each district that was nominated by the board of directors, and you approved the whole nominating committee. So first of all, I want to introduce the nominating committee and thank them for their work. From District 1, will you please stand up when I call your name or raise your hand, whichever you prefer. Betty Shelley, District 1. District 2 was Lynn Morgan. Is she here? I don't see her.
Oh, right there. Yeah, she's over there. Lynn.
Lynn.
No, no, it's not
That's
Lynn
not
Morgan.
Lynn?
It's not Lynn Morgan.
Okay.
No.
Sorry. Never mind.
Next.
Okay, District 2. District 3 was Christine Jones, and District 4 was Marilyn Mamano. So let me tell you a little bit about the elections. The council board of directors serve for 2-year terms. There's a 2-year term limit. Anybody who has served on the nominating committee cannot be a recommended nominee of the nomination committee. So they have to be nominated from the floor. There will also be tonight our recommendation, and then there will be nominations from the floor, and then there will also be nominations from the floor at next month's meeting, which will be when we have our election. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so let me pull up the nominating committee, our recommendations. Yeah. I have it on the computer, on my phone, because otherwise I'm gonna not remember the order. For president, these are the committee recommendations. For president is Mary Peliquin. For first vice president is Dr. Jean-Jacques Rodner. Second vice president, Michael Albetta. Recording secretary, Kathy Stubbs. Corresponding secretary, Jim Kinconen. And treasurer, Melinda Walker. Immediate past president, who is not elected, she's an immediate past president, but is Colleen Lockwood. And the chair of committees is blank because that person served on the nominating committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the nomination from the floor.
We're going to have nominations
Okay.
when I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you. District 1 is Abby Laughlin. District 2 is William Bill Brown. District 3, Frankie Lane. District 4, Lynn Winters. Now, I will go in order, and if there's any nominations from the floor. Are there any nominations from the floor for president of the council?
I saw somebody raise their hand. Go ahead.
No, there's a committee.
Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. Can I do that?
Yes. Yes, you can.
First vice president, are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. Second vice president, Michael Albetta, are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. For recording secretary, Kathy Stubbs, are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. Corresponding secretary, Jim Kinconen, are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. Treasurer, Melinda Balker, are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. Chair of committees, are there any nominations from the floor?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Marilyn Marinaro as the chair of the committees.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Do you agree to, sir?
I am
Yes, okay. District 1 Representative Abby Laughlin. Are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. District 2 Representative William Bill Brown. Are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I move the nominations are closed. District 4 Representative Lynn Winters. Are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I recommend the nominations are closed. That's your slate of candidates. Thank everyone who agreed to serve. Yes. I can't hear you.
District 3. Dennis, District 3.
Oh, I didn't say District 3? Frankie Lane, I'm sorry. Are there any nominations?
Got nomination. Christine Jones.
Is there a second?
Second, District 3.
Okay, Christine Jones is nominated also for District 3 representative. Okay, those are your candidates. And there will be nominations from the floor, as I said again, at next meeting. And the next meeting is the election. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, so.
Thanks again for the nominating committee that served.
Thanks for the chairperson.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Great job, all of you. So I just want to point out, so there will be an election because we have 2 candidates for 1 position so far. So make sure that you are all up to date. If you have a new representative or an alt, it's the rep or the alt that can vote. Remember that. It's not the president, it's not the treasurer, it's not the secretary. It's the appointed representative or the alternate. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and now next we have, we're going to talk a little bit about Neighborhood Support Night, which I'm all excited about. It's coming up this Thursday. Do you want to say anything or?
Well, thanks everyone. We're looking forward to a great event this year, Thursday, February 16th. I want to thank the council, especially Michael, who is your representative. And we've been coordinating this year. It's a job fair education themed event. We have over 25 sponsors. That's going to be there with food and giveaways and raffle prizes. This year, your mayor and commissioners and city staff are going to be part of an exciting runway fashion show, displaying the services, the workforce. So we're looking forward to there's going to be a tree giveaway, lots of exciting events. So please come out. We're looking forward to a great event this Thursday. Thank you.
That's terrific. I mean, who doesn't want to see a fashion show that those commissioners are in? So, yes. If everybody wants to volunteer.
Thank you.
That hasn't volunteered.
Please show up at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Just need 1 hour. If you want to start at 6?
We need 3 volunteers from CFLCA to help with the judging. This year, we're going to have a secret judging table. Secret judging where the judges are going to go around and secretly score the best table display. So we're going to give you the cards and you just judge and give it back to us. So we're going to hopefully get some volunteers from CFLCA.
Alrighty, great. We'll be there. I'll be there. Mike will be there. I think Dennis will be there. So anyway, it should be a good time. Okay, and then lastly, now I gave you guys flowers and candy tonight. I'm going to buy you a beer if you're one of the first 40 people on Monday night at Gulfstream Brewery. We did send out an invitation. We've invited a lot of people, not knowing, how this is going to work. Just as a recap, we talked about this last meeting. Every quarter, we're going to have a social gathering, just purely social, what's your dog's name, how your kid's doing, type of a meeting. So I hope you guys all come. You get a free beer. We'll have some pizza. It's kind of a fun place and, a local place. So this is our first one, so I hope you guys come. Oh, and one last thing. Okay, so everybody gonna come have a beer? You don't even have to have a beer. You can have a glass of water or a soda or something like that. Okay, all right, and there'll be pizza and food, and then if you want more, you can buy some more. So it'll be fun. I'll be there. I'll be giving you beer, first 40 people.
All right, and then one last thing. This is attached to the agenda, Neighborhood Recognition Program. This is a city's program. It's very important you do this. I look at this quite often. This is how I get a hold of people in different or civic associations that I don't have their contact information. It's fairly easy. I think there was actually a little communication piece that went out about it. We'll try to get this, I've got to get that on our website too. But you can, if you have this, I think it's, there it is, where you go, it's right on the front and back of it. But basic. Okay, oh, go ahead, Laura, thank you.
Hi everyone, nice to have you all here. So everyone should have had this behind their agenda. It's our neighborhood recognition program. The deadline is March 1st, and to access the application, go to Fort Lauderdale's website. Under neighbor supports, there's going to be a navigation panel on the left side that says neighborhood recognition program.
Okay.
You'll find all the information on that page. Alternatively, if you can't get to that page, I can give you my email address. You can send me an email. It's lmccoy, so LMCCOY @fortlauderdale.gov. And again, the application is due March 1st.
Okay, and just Marilyn pointed this out. We, in order to be a member of the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations, you have to be recognized by the city, which is what you do when you go online and put in your civic association's information. So I'll make that clear. I think almost everybody does it. It's not too hard. Just remember, you have to have minutes from one of your meetings. That's always the interesting part. Okay. All right. Moving forward, did everybody see the minutes? Are there any corrections or additions, or does anybody want to make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 17th meeting? Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good. Minutes are accepted as they are. Then we have a treasurer's report. Were you able to do that, treasurer?
Yes.
Almost. Is this working? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So quick treasurer's report, update as of today, February 14. So we have still our two primary accounts. We have the Truist primary business checking account, now with a balance of $7,219. And then we have the council PayPal account, which it's great that most people are using that to pay their membership. That's at $1,388. So a total in both of $8,608.01. And the only change in the checking account since I last spoke to you has been just one additional check paid to a board member for holiday party expenses, which was cashed. And at the end, we will have, so when we have the vote on March 14th, next month, we have 51 paid members through the year ended March 31st, 2023. They will all be eligible to vote. And we do have 6 associations who have paid for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2024. Which, as Mary said, will start on April 1st of this year. So please go ahead and really February is the key time to get your membership payment in and make sure that we don't have to send you a reminder. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, so any old business? Yes.
Are we ever going to get to the parking?
Oh, the question is, are we ever going to get new parking things? But I think we brought this up last time. I think that's a question for.
She has a hand raised.
Yeah, so that's a question for me. So through the neighborhood recognition program, once you submit this application, I can route your name over to our transportation and mobility, and they can review a parking permit for you, and it lasts up to 1 year. So that will be starting on March 1st after I receive all of the applications and site proposals.
Another reason to, free parking or no,
There's a method to the madness.
yeah, that'll do it, free parking. All right, anything else? Okay. How many, do I need a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No.
All right, then the meeting is adjourned. I like to push that little Zoom button, meeting over. Thank you, everybody, happy Valentine's Day. And Sergeant, please take some roses.
He did, I already took
All
care
right,
of it.
okay, good.
I took care of him.
Okay, good. No, take candy.
Mary.